as we get back into some basketball, and it is time for our trade target. So look, it was I came in saying it was Monday. Obviously, it's Tuesday now, a little bit turned around because of the day off, but I'm trying to do this hint, Kyle. I always do it off the top of my head. This guy is somebody that we've talked about before, a shooting guard from the East Coast, that this is just a team that doesn't really have direction and not really sure if he is still a huge part of what they are trying to do. And we're going to give you 10 seconds here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That person is RJ Barrett. So RJ Barrett is our trade candidate for today. And there are reports coming out that the Raptors may be interested in moving RJ Barrett. This is a guy who is he just made $25.7 million this year. Next year, he'll make $27 million. After that, he'll make $29 million. He's 24 years old. You look at Grady Dick and other players on the Raptors. Now you bring in Brandon Ingram. Not really sure where RJ Barrett fits. He's a young player that I think is right in that second draft. It would be his third at this point. He would be his third team, but that second, third draft candidate where he's about to be 25 and you might have something there. Honestly, he reminds me a little bit too much from what I've seen of D'Angelo Russell, the whole play at your own pace thing. It's not fully for me, but I'd be willing to take a chance on a 24-year-old and get off of course, DeMar DeRozan's contract. We'll talk a little bit more about how the Kings could acquire RJ Barrett, as it looks like the Raptors probably have a couple people now. The Brandon Ingram thing just still doesn't make sense to me. But now that they've done it, I think Grady Dick is probably rated, and Immanuel Quickley, probably both higher on the Raptors priority list. I think Immanuel Quickley is another guy where you could see the Raptors just saying, okay, well, I don't know that we need Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett and Grady Dick all on the team. So a couple names might get brought up here. RJ Barrett, he only played 58 games, 21.1 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game. His career average is 18.8 as far as his points per game. So 3 points more than that. He shot 35% from three. It's a little bit better than his career. 63% from the free throw line. Goodness gracious. As far as his career is concerned, he was sitting at 21.1 last season, which is essentially the most of his career. If you look at, the 20 points per game last season, that's when the trade happened. So career high in points per game this season. I'm interested. I don't know how much it moves me. I don't know what RJ Barrett is going to be. He's, again, 24 to 26, man. It really, you go from one of the dudes to, hey, are you going to be worth anyone's time as a star? It really happens that fast. You have Keegan in that realm. You have RJ Barrett in that realm. Just a bunch of dudes where we're just trying to figure out what exactly are you. 24 to 26 is the what are you going to be in this league situation. So that's RJ Barrett. He goes 6'6", so yes, he is a shooting guard, but at 6'6", it does say shooting guard and small forward, so you can stick him there and maybe Keegan at the 3, or Keegan at the 4, rather, and maybe that will work. So he's a guard, yes, but he is a long guard that can double as a small forward.
Yes, and he was the essentially number 3 scoring option on a bad offensive team this last season.
Yeah.
And he was a net positive on the offensive side. He's also tell me if you've heard this before, a below average defender. So you essentially have him kind of in that purgatory of what you talked about a bit with Anthony Simons and Jordan Poole and other players like that, where it's like they have bucket getting abilities and are good enough to be in the NBA, but who's the team that's going to give him the runway to blossom into that guy when the Knicks gave it 4 years, The Raptors have given it 2 years, and RJ Barrett's only playoff appearance was that 1 year that Trae Young said, bowing to the crowd for the New York Knicks. It's hard to kind of compartmentalize that with what his potential could be. But he's also younger than Keegan Murray. So I guess if we're going to make the case that Keegan Murray is not a fully formed NBA player, then potentially RJ Barrett isn't either. But I look at RJ Barrett just kind of as like probably a number 4 at this, a number 3 to number 4 on the offensive side of the ball at this stage of his career, which in fairness is what the Kings might be bringing him in for if they made that deal.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to, this is interesting because, again, based on the age, you are getting a guy that is not in his prime yet. He's 24, 25. So this is, to me, that let's take a mini swing, and if it doesn't work out, we're kind of hybrid tanking, and we're going to get these numbers off the books and go from there. It really just depends. Do you want to go that route, or would you rather just get some expiring deals, if you will, and you stink and you get back into the lottery? This could honestly elongate a little longer than some fans would like, but maybe you keep Domantas Sabonis a little bit happier and you keep ownership a bit happier because you're not full on tanking. It's more of a slow burn. Hey, maybe we find something to RJ Barrett. If we don't, hopefully we lose some games. I think the problem is you could find yourself in the middle again.
Yes, and they would be banking on hopefully RJ Barrett playing a little bit better on the offensive end of the floor, but the thing that's very nice is, like, on defense he can guard threes, and on offense he's essentially a point guard or a point forward. He brings ball handling in a way that DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine do not. So I think if you added RJ Barrett, that kind of fills your two needs. I don't know if it does it great, but it fills both of your needs. You get ball handling on offense and you get wing defense. Not great wing defense, but you get a wing defender at least. So you get length and you get ball handling in one player. The problem is he's just not great at either. The other fun part is when RJ Barrett, you remember when the Knicks thought they were going to get Zion Williamson for like 4 minutes during that one lottery, and then they ended up getting the 3rd pick in the draft? Guess who was the general manager of the New York Knicks when they selected RJ Barrett?
Let us know.
That would be Mr. Scott Perry, current general manager of the Sacramento Kings. You know who else signed RJ Barrett to this 4-year, $100 million extension with the New York Knicks? That would be Mr. Scott Perry. So he not only drafted RJ Barrett, he also gave him his second contract for $100 million. And then once he left, they traded him for the deal that eventually became OG Anunoby. So you've got a connection there.
You got the connection there. Lefty as well. Can't forget that. Just shout out to all the lefties out there. How can the Kings acquire RJ Barrett? But also something just came in from Bovada, and they have official lines on DeMar DeRozan and where he is going to end up next. You'll never guess who's not on the list. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. RJ Barrett is the trade target for today, and we have a couple different trades we are going to toss around that Kyle is going to present to us. But I did see this, Kyle, and I wanted to mention it. Bovada has just come out with their odds for the favorites in the DeMar DeRozan sweepstakes. And you have in fifth place at plus 525, the Philadelphia, and I'm just obviously thinking about this as to how he would get acquired and what the other team would have to give up. At number 5 at plus 525, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Interesting. That's one we haven't really thought about much. Could you imagine a starting 5 of Maxey, Embiid, Paul George?
Well, you weren't here, but we did trade target as Tyrese Maxey. So we did get DeMar to Philadelphia. We made him go. We made him go. It would cost a lot to get Tyrese Maxey, but this was the idea of swinging high on somebody you think could be a star?
I'm looking at the numbers. It does not look like there's going to be any way that they're going to be able to.
There's always a way.
Make this work without. Oh, let me try it real quick.
We tried it.
Nope.
No, we tried it. The Denver Nuggets come in at number 4, tied at number 3, actually, at plus 375. Kyle's Toronto Raptors also at plus 375.
He's going home.
Which home? Because at plus 220, number 2 on this list, the Los Angeles Lakers.
Well, everywhere DeMar DeRozan goes is home.
Give me Rui Hachimura.
That is the deal.
And Austin Reeves.
It's not that one. It's Maxi Kleba.
Rui Hachimura and Dalton Knecht right now.
Rui Hachimura and Maxi Kleba.
No. Give me Dalton. Make things right. He was supposed to be ours and the number 1 team at plus 145. Give me Jaime Jaquez. It's the Miami Heat. Give me Jovic and Jaime Jaquez. Thank you very much.
That one might actually. I mean, you could probably get one of them, right?
Yeah, I'm leaving here with something.
I'm leaving here with something.
We're not doing these half-hearted deals anymore. All right, we are leaving here with something. But the team, obviously, that I found it to be interesting, and normally these teams will be on these odds list, is the team that DeMar DeRozan is currently on. The Sacramento Kings are not on this list. And I don't think that's because he's already on the Kings. I think it's because Bovada doesn't think that DeMar DeRozan's going back to the Kings.
Yeah. What is the exact phrasing of it? Because I haven't seen the actual tweet itself. Is the phrasing next team or team he'll play for next year?
The Miami Heat are favorites to land DeMar DeRozan.
Okay, so they're operating in a world where DeRozan is going to get traded, which again is not like, oh my gosh, how shocking. It's just kind of making it more of a reality that, hey, we're starting to get into the nooks and crannies of these trades, and everyone kind of feels like DeRozan's available.
All the teams that are involved, I like the assets that they would have. Like you said, Tyrese Maxey would be tough, so I don't know. I don't want to get into the Kelly Oubre business. I just feel like he always has a 3-year deal somewhere. I don't know where, but it's somewhere. I'm hearing Kelly Oubre and Quentin Grimes. I don't like that. Don't like that at all. So Philadelphia scares me a bit. Unless
it's not even Quentin Grimes. He's a free agent.
Yeah. Philadelphia scares me a little bit.
I'm trying to make it work. If there's a deal where they don't get any of the big 4 from the 76ers, which is obviously Embiid, George Maxey, and Jared McCain, it would be
something I don't like.
Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, who they could probably just buy out. He'll probably never play for the Kings. So Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon, and Ricky Council IV.
Yeah, that's not going to fly for me.
And draft picks.
The I could be brought in based on the draft picks. Denver Nuggets, that name popped up. I believe Kendrick Perkins brought up Denver as well. So Denver, to me, that's probably Michael Porter Jr. type situation there.
Yeah, and the Kings can make that work with the trade exception. It's just, do they want to pay? I'm trying to do the math in my head. Do they want to pay $90 million over the next 2 years for Zach LaVine and Michael Porter Jr.?
Look, you get and we talked about him too. You get a point guard, and you do have snipers all around the arc. So you're taking a bet on. I don't think you're taking a bet on Michael Porter Jr. taking a leap. You're just saying, hey, just be good at what you do. Just be really good at what you do, and we're okay there. Toronto Raptors, as we are talking about RJ Barrett. Yeah, I tried to get Emmanuel Quickley. I don't think the Kings could get Emmanuel Quickley. It depends on how much, again, DeMar's value is, but my initial trade dungeon, it would be hard to get Emmanuel Quickley. Do I like Emmanuel Quickley more than RJ Barrett? Maybe a little, just from a point guard standpoint. I don't. I would rather take a swing on Emmanuel Quickley, I think, than RJ Barrett if possible. The Lakers, it's going to be some combination of Rui Hachimura, Vanderbilt, guys like that, Gabe Vincent, guys like that. I'm not opposed to that in the Miami Heat. Yeah, I don't. You have to give me Jaime Jaquez or Jovic, and I really want Jaquez, to be honest with you.
I think Miami would be okay with getting rid of Jaquez at this point. He's older and was not as good last year. I mean, they'd obviously get something else, but is Duncan Robinson moving the needle? I don't feel like that's changing the fortunes of the Kings in any dramatic way. It is interesting that, that we did we did the match game for DeMar DeRozan a couple weeks ago of the teams that would make the most sense for him. Detroit and Orlando both didn't end up on this list of top 5 most likely destinations. I still feel like both of those fits make sense based on where those teams are and where DeRozan's at this stage of his career. Denver, of course, would make sense, but I don't know if Denver wants to go that route. And then at that point, you're kind of left with the Torontos and the Miamis and the teams that are kind of on the fringe that, DeRozan's helping them get back to the play-in, and that seems to be all DeMar DeRozan is good for at this stage of his career, is just dragging teams back to the 9-10 game of the play-in.
Yeah, so, a lot of different teams might be interested in DeMar DeRozan, and RJ Barrett being a name. Do we think he went third, right? Do we think he has any star power? I'm going to be honest. He played on the Knicks. I watched him more on the Knicks. Now he's on the Raptors. We could fire up some highlights here or there. His name, and part of that is Toronto and Toronto not being good, but his name just isn't brought up. And I guess that's the whole point of the sleeper idea, but he ain't getting paid like a sleeper. He's got a healthy contract.
He's getting paid like a number 3, and last year he was a number 3 on the 25th ranked offense in the NBA. So that tells me, and again, his number 1 was not very good. I mean, Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, and RJ Barrett is not exactly a fearsome trio at that point. And I will acknowledge, Barrett will be, this is going to be year 7 for him. Domantas Sabonis would be the best teammate RJ Barrett has ever played with, depending on how you feel about 2021 Julius Randle.
Yeah.
I would say without question, this is going to be the best teammate Barrett's had at any point in his career if they make the deal. I know we kind of glossed over it, but the deal is just straight up RJ Barrett for DeMar DeRozan. That's the trade. No draft picks, no nothing. Maybe someone throws in a second either way, but it's basically just RJ Barrett for DeMar DeRozan, which makes sense for Toronto, because if Toronto wants to get from being an 11-12 seed to a play-in team, all the numbers tell you DeMar DeRozan is an excellent offensive player and would essentially be a number 2 on this team with Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley. I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides. I've talked about it before, and you gave me the shout this week. You actually informed me about the RJ Barrett rumor with your tweet, but I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides, because RJ Barrett is a slightly more expensive, less good version of DeMar DeRozan, but he does have better ball handling abilities, which I think could help the Kings. And of course, it aligns the timelines with him being 24, Keegan being 24, Keon Ellis being 23, Devin Carter being 23, all those quote unquote younger players on the Kings would all be on the same timeline with Sabonis and LaVine.
There is another trade package that could get the Kings RJ Barrett. Let's talk about it when we return now on Sactown Sports.
Allen Stiles. Watch the show on youtube.com/Sactown Sports 1140.
Or listen on the Sactown Sports app.
What will it cost to acquire RJ Barrett, our trade candidate of the day? Now, I wouldn't put RJ Barrett at the top of my list, but he gets the Kings a little bit younger. He's got a little bit of star power. He's played on a big stage out there in New York, gets moved in the OG deal, and, haven't really heard from him as much since. He is coming off career high in scoring. It's just the team was not very good. So the first trade is just a straight up DeMar DeRozan and RJ Barrett swap. And if you're the Raptors, I mean, even the Raptors, to me, if DeMar DeRozan goes to the Raptors, you can't take 20 shots a game. You can't do it.
Well, he wasn't taking 20 a game on the Kings. I mean, he was in certain games, but I don't think he was putting up that many shots per game.
Well, it was a lot. I know that. And you have, again, a Grady Dick. You have a Scotty Barnes. Okay. You have a Brandon Ingram who you just paid for some odd reason. So those are three guys that I'm probably prioritizing over DeMar DeRozan when it comes to the shot distribution.
It's also interesting. I'm just looking it up real quick here, but RJ Barrett was way more of a volume score than I realized. Yeah, so this is crazy. Last season, DeMar DeRozan took 17 shots per game for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
More than we probably would have liked, but he took 17 per game. On the Raptors, RJ Barrett took 18.9 shots per game last year. It's so funny to think about that because Toronto was a bad offense last year, but in a weird way, DeMar DeRozan fits better into what they're doing than RJ Barrett does. I know the age thing is a little weird, but in terms of their actual skill sets, because they have Quickly, who they can make the primary ball handler and facilitator with Grady Dick at the 2 and Scotty Barnes at the 4, in a weird way, DeRozan is a better fit than RJ Barrett is for them right now. And I'm kind of talking myself into the trade, but I didn't realize just how much of a merchant RJ Barrett was last year.
Well, you're making that deal because Raptor fans would be happy besides Drake. And you make a decision very similar to what the Pelicans did. Hey, we're choosing to, it's good to have young talent, but we can only form so much talent, and there's only one ball, right? So if we think that Grady Dick is more important and Scotty Barnes is more important and Brandon Ingram, who we just paid, is more important, and Emmanuel Quickly, then RJ Barrett, you're just not gonna get enough touches, and we don't want you taking shots. But the same conversation is had with DeMar DeRozan. It's just, hey, DeMar, you're at the end of your road here. You will start you. You might even come off the bench at some point. When you need to take over in that closer role, cool. But yeah, we need you at about 12 shots a game, 15 a game, something like that, closer to 12. If you need to close the game for us, cool. It's easier to tell a 36-year-old that than a 24-year-old and RJ Barrett who's going to say, well, then why am I here?
Yeah, and RJ Barrett's kind of in this weird spot in his career where I guess based on his draft positioning, he's been fine so far, but I think most people would say RJ Barrett has had a bit of a disappointing career up to this point. And that's hard to say for someone who's averaged 20 points per game each of the last, 4 seasons, but he's mostly done it on teams that have lost a lot of games. I'm actually going to look it up, what RJ Barrett's win percentages for his career, but he's been a number 2 or number 3 on a lot of teams that are bad or below average. And I think a big part of that is that they've been bad defensive teams for most of his career.
So the second trade package that Kyle has cooked up, you have the Raptors, okay, acquiring Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, and pick number 42. And why am I most upset with pick 42 being gone in that trade? And the Kings acquiring RJ Barrett. This to me is a bit, I guess, more convoluted than the first one because Malik Monk, I guess you're running him at the 2. Again, what is the best asset that the Raptors are getting in this trade?
I guess it's Malik Monk, but I guess it's also the financial flexibility. Not that they need financial flexibility, but the financial flexibility that comes with getting off of RJ Barrett's contract. Because I think the gap in money there is like $10 million, which the Kings are able to do because they have a little bit of trade space. I'm not going to say cap space. They have trade available space before the apron. But yeah, Toronto, I think it would just be we don't want RJ Barrett anymore, which based on some of the reports seems like that might be a truer statement than not, is that they don't really want RJ Barrett all that much anymore.
Yeah. And the priority that I see, I know that they've been saying, was it last year where Scotty Barnes had that leap And then this year they thought he was going to keep it going. I know last year was a break. They kept telling us it was a breakout season. Nobody watched, but he wasn't. I believe he was an all-star.
He's been an all-star.
Yeah.
I think that was, 2024.
Yeah. So the last year was his leap year, if you will. And then this year, he's another guy. Are you playing? The Raptors stink. So they've made decisions in RJ Barrett. Thank you for your service, but that decision has kind of been made.
I looked it up. He took a step back last year. He shot, his 3-point percentage went from 34% in his all-star season to 27%. His points per game went down. His assists per game went down. His field goal percentage dropped off tremendously. Yeah, no, Scotty Barnes had a tough year last year. I guess, like you said, they were a fun league pass team at the end because you could see Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly. But yeah, Scotty Barnes had a rough season last year.
When I look at Brandon Ingram and RJ Barrett, and I know the last time Brandon Ingram looked like a point guard was against the Kings in the play-in when Zion Williamson didn't play. But yeah, I just think they're a smidge redundant. I think RJ Barrett is a much better and more willing three-point shooter than Brandon Ingram. But it's just, again, there's only one ball. Really, the decision wasn't between Scotty Barnes and Grady Dick and RJ Barrett. I think the decision was between Brandon Ingram and RJ Barrett, and deciding, Brandon Ingram, who basically a decision was made in New Orleans for Trey Murphy. Now you have the Raptors making a decision. Will that work out for them? I mean, who's going to have a better career, Brandon Ingram or RJ Barrett? Brandon Ingram has definitely had more moments.
Brandon Ingram's made an all-star team.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram has definitely had more moments. I would maybe trust that the way that they're trusting it. He's had some injury issues, but yeah, RJ Barrett, to me, what that ceiling is a little bit confusing, and I don't know. That's the one guy where the Raptors aren't going to be able to shop him around and really say, oh, well, who wants RJ Barrett? Right? We're going to the highest bidder. I just don't think that the bidder is that high, because so many teams, you either sinking. We have our own questionable 24-year-old that we're still trying to, and we don't have 4 others like you do. So we're going to keep our 24-year-old and see if he can figure it out. The Kings, they don't, and we have multiple, really, a lot of these teams. The Kings don't. So the Kings might say, yeah, do we need RJ Barrett as far as that position? Maybe, but would we rather have him at 24 than DeMar DeRozan at 37? Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. He essentially, we've been talking about they need length and they need ball handling. He essentially gives them a backup version of both of those things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they would rather have Jake LaRavia defending threes than RJ Barrett, but at least RJ Barrett can defend threes instead of DeRozan, where they just had to hide him in the corner the whole time. And then ball handling, you don't want him as your primary point guard, but RJ Barrett can handle the ball better than Zach LaVine or better than DeMar DeRozan did. So,
and I don't even. You could throw Malik in there too. I wouldn't, but in spurts,
I would
maybe.
rather have RJ Barrett ball handling than Malik Monk.
Yeah, RJ Barrett, his career only 3.3 assists, but he did have 5.4 this past season, so he's over my threshold as far as the assists are concerned. And it's a fine swing if you're going to go in that direction. I'd rather just go get Jonathan Kuminga if the Warriors. Now, again, the Warriors would have to be interested, but that's who I would rather take a chance on. A little bit younger, more athletic at this point in time. Obviously, RJ Barrett's a better shooter and a better distributor of the basketball, but I would rather go with RJ Barrett or with Jonathan Kuminga.
Bringing it back to the Barrett and his future point, if you had to guess right now, RJ Barrett got $27 million per year on his second contract. Do you believe that his third contract is going to be for more or for less?
Less.
You would say less?
I would say less.
Well, then at this point, he's a number 4, right? Because in the modern NBA, $27 million means you're a number 3, right? DeRozan's making $25 million. He's a number 3. Malik Monk's making $18 million a year. He's a number 4, right? So the idea is he's a number 3 now, and he's about to be passed around to his third team on this contract.
I'm saying I could be wrong, and then he does get the bag, right? It's funny, you're trying out while making $30 million, but it's basically I'm trying out for my next contract through the guise of me performing with my now third team of my career.
Yeah, because essentially last year they wanted a big 3 of Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, and RJ Barrett. And at the midpoint of the season, they decided RJ Barrett ain't a number 3, and they got a nice little discount on Brandon Ingram, but they did have to give up a first-round pick to get Brandon Ingram and then pay him $40 million. So that big 3 is going to be Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, and Brandon Ingram. If you integrate DeMar DeRozan, I think DeMar DeRozan works alongside Brandon Ingram in a way that I know they're both mid-range assassins, but I think your team makes a little bit more sense that way than it does with RJ Barrett being a spot-up shooter, because that's not RJ Barrett's best ability.
There's another team interested in DeMar DeRozan. Would you make a move to send him to the East Coast? Down south, Sactown Sports.
Huge news. Right now at Wendy's, you can get